Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. Now that my two obligatory informative videos are done for the day, it's time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. And someone told me, and I read about it when I first got up, that a YouTuber who's a gaming YouTuber by the name of Jeremy Hambly was publicly assaulted and definitely got some physical marks on him as a result of it, purely for the views, the social views that he expresses on YouTube. So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing, work on skilling up my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. You know, this one kind of hits home for me, and I know this isn't necessarily fitness related, but I am a gamer. And in fact, I believe this was revolving around GenCon, which is where he was at, which I've actually known about since long before the internet was as big as it was, because I've played D&D since I was in high school. So, I mean, I'm a gamer. I'm a nerd. I'm a total nerd. Yeah, that's why I'm working on my weaponsmithing. And it's interesting kind of how that spun out. And people are going to say, well, maybe he espoused controversial views. Yeah, he did. But the person who attacked him was a left-wing extremist. And I want people to understand the difference between someone who's maybe left-leaning versus being an actual extremist. There's a big difference, guys. There's a big difference. You know, a person can have political beliefs without being the sort of person who espouses violence directly towards views that they dislike. And when you start espousing violence as a result of your political views, that is what I define as an extremist. Or I want to attack people physically who have a different political view. That's what we define as an extremist, right? Just because someone has a political ideology doesn't automatically make you an extremist. But it's interesting that happened, and it hits home to me, and it's something that people need to really think about if you're going to jump into this whole YouTube game. You guys know I personally have had to deal with some pretty extreme stuff, to the point to where I've had to have the feds involved, like the FBI has been involved. People can argue all they want about that they don't believe that, but yeah, the FBI has actually gone and questioned at least one person at their home as a result of my stuff. They've gone to them and talked to them. So yeah, it got pretty serious. It's gotten pretty serious. But for me, this is something that people need to understand when you're dealing with your favorite YouTubers. You'd be surprised what they put up with. Like, you're thinking that there are people up here who aren't even controversial and don't realize that they have stalkers. Not all of them talk about it. We might talk about it with each other behind the scenes. I've had at least one fitness YouTuber talk to me in private, because they know I'm kind of a gun guy, and say, hey, you know, I'm thinking about, you know, getting an AR for my home, just to deal with some of these crazies, just in case. All right, you need to understand that is what people go through, and this is not a particularly controversial person. They don't really have a bunch of controversial views. A number of YouTubers have been assaulted. A number have been killed by stalkers. If you guys remember, I can't remember her name. But she was a singer, and she was killed. She was not controversial. She didn't have political or social views. She was killed by a fan, a stalker fan. An obsessed stalker shot her dead at an event. Right? I mean, this is the reality that we live in as YouTubers. And I know this from talking with the feds further about it, that the amount of death threats that the average YouTuber gets, like someone who's a full-time YouTuber, anyone like me, you know, if you making a daily video and you have over 50,000 subscribers, you're now a full-time YouTuber. That the amount of threats that they all get, even the non-controversial ones or the stalkers or the crazy stuff, you'd be really surprised. You'd be surprised. To the point where the feds are like, there's so much of it that we could never do anything about it till it becomes serious. Until we actually have reason to believe that a person is going to act, we don't have the resources to even deal with it. The amount of calls that they get from YouTubers dealing with stalkers and harassment is actually, you guys would be shocked at what law enforcement agencies have to deal with. The ones who deal with internet stuff, which means like the FBI in the U.S., you know, Scotland Yard over in the UK, you'd be surprised the number of calls that they get and the reports, and 99% of them aren't actionable because the people haven't gone far enough. But again, death threats and threats of violence of various types are the norm for us. This is stuff that we get every single day. And I don't just mean on our YouTube. I mean our social media, even our private social media. I mean, for years and years, I've probably gotten 1,000 death threats sent to me in my other folder on Facebook. Right? My other folder, the one that I have blocked so that I can't see it because I have a private Facebook for my friends and family. Like, I get stuff in it. You guys would be shocked if I showed you some of the crap that people write to me, of what they're going to do to me. To them and their friends when they catch me. Yeah, because people go into graphic detail. That's the norm, guys. This is what we deal with. This is what we deal with. And so you need to think about that when you guys start talking about how you want to approach your favorite YouTuber. You know, you need to think about that, guys, because you'd be surprised also. I've had at least one other fitness YouTuber chatting with me saying, you know, they're always armed. They always carry. They always keep guns in their gym bag. Just because. Right? And it's obviously they're in places where they can legally do that. But again, I've met a number of other YouTubers in person, fitness YouTubers. And again, you guys might be surprised how many, or this is a real concern. It's a real concern of being assaulted, of being attacked, of having people come after them just because they don't like something they've said, something they've done. And it doesn't even have to be that controversial. It can just be an obsessed fan. And you know what, guys? I'm going to be honest. Like, my stuff hadn't even got bad. That was one of my decisions of saying I'm not staying in the United Kingdom anymore. I dealt with 2 different stalking situations when I was in the UK. 2 different stalking situations. And one of them was a legitimate hater, was mailing stuff to my home from another country, harassing my ex-wife. Was actually harassing her, like mailing stuff to our home where they had doctored photos of her. I'm not going to get into what they had put, but they were mailing stuff to our home. And this was before I was a big controversial figure. I hadn't even done the fake natty stuff yet, right? I hadn't even really gotten into all the fake natty stuff or any of that yet. I only had like 20,000 subscribers when that started happening. Then I had a real life stalker who really just seemed to be a fan. Really seemed to be a fan, but he creeped me out because I used to walk everywhere in the UK. I used to go to the grocery store all the time. I used to take walks everywhere because I didn't drive there. And everything was centrally located. And the dude caught me out on the street multiple times and kept wanting to talk to me and follow me. Kept trying to follow me back to my house. You know, that made me feel uncomfortable. Made me feel real uncomfortable. And people need to understand that too. Of, you know, when you get to a certain point, you might be a big fan of a YouTuber, but you need to understand the creepy factor of when you go, oh man, it's my favorite YouTuber. I want to follow him and chat with him. It's like, you need to understand the creepy factor of that. And a lot of people don't think about those things when they're dealing with this person they see them. You got to remember, they're a real person. They are entitled to a certain amount of privacy, and you need to understand YouTubers all get death threats. We all get death threats. All of us get death threats, whether serious or not. I got them long before I became anywhere near as controversial as I am now. So you guys need to understand that. You need to understand that it's not all just, oh, you know, people talk bad about them. So if there's someone talking bad about a YouTuber anywhere, if they made videos anywhere, if there's forums about them, I guarantee you that person is dealing with a stalking situation on top of it. That's someone who probably gets emailed death threats regularly as well. You know, certain things on the surface appear innocent enough, but again, you'd be surprised. And this is a perfect example of the reality that YouTubers have to go through. If you take a stance on anything, you're not a full-time multi-millionaire celebrity most of the time. You don't have an armed entourage. And this is the other thing people need to think about. They always say stuff like, oh man, I'm surprised you make the kind of money you do. I didn't think that you did. Man, I want to jump into YouTube. That's some easy money. Well, YouTube can be easy money. It can be good money. But you need to understand that it comes with oftentimes the same negatives that big celebrities have to deal with, but without the same type of money, without the same sort of resources available. What I'm going to tell people right now, something you need to think through very, very carefully of, you know, people start pushing, hey, I want to make it big on YouTube. Well, you need to start events thinking in terms of what are you prepared to do in terms of security? What venues are you willing to go to? Because it used to be different. People used to just always, have random venues, invite everyone, do all these things. But more and more people who used to do that are now saying, "Hey, man, I got crazies now. I'm dealing with crazies." And they may not ever tell you guys publicly, but I've talked with some behind the scenes who've dealt with this, and again, you guys would be really surprised because they're oftentimes not even controversial people at all. It's just the reality of being up there as a public figure. But yeah, this is the threat that YouTubers deal with, particularly once you take any sort of controversial view. I don't care whether it's right wing or left wing, whether you take even a pro or against something. I mean, literally, if you could put out an anti-anything view or sentiment, social justice warriors are going to come after you. If you put out maybe too big of a pro-feminist view or a pro-gay view, you might get attacked for that. So it's the situation that you deal with once you start putting out anything that's of any controversy. You're going to get hate, and that hate isn't just on the internet. It just isn't just on the internet. It risks real life confrontations. And that's exactly what happened to Jeremy Hambly. It's exactly what happened. He's espoused some views, and I don't know the extent of those views that were controversial enough that it caused a professor, some social justice warrior professor, to assault him, cause property damage, everything else when he saw him in public. The guy broke a window, was screaming he was going to kill him. And this guy's fortunate that he wasn't armed. So again, this is kind of one of the dark sides of being a YouTuber. This is the negative. The fun side is putting out content you love, helping people, entertaining people, making money. But you guys got to remember there is a negative side to this also, and that negative involves threats, stalkers, people obsessing over you, people obsessing over your family members, your significant others. It can get pretty extreme because you need to remember there's a lot of really crazy, weird people out there. That's just reality. And I just thought I would take kind of this video to highlight that and talk about that a little bit because it's something that doesn't get talked about enough because a lot of YouTubers are embarrassed about it. They don't want to bring attention to it. But this is something that we deal with. I've dealt with it more so than a lot of others. Mine has been above average. But it's there, guys, and this is the reality of being a public figure on the internet these days. It's just the reality that we all live with once we get into this. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.